Stevie Fast Jackson, KTR Bahrain 1 with an episode of YouTube Q&A. Charles Green, so you're saying you leave off the staging light turning off. Please explain. This is in reference to our Pro Mod tutorial. When I say that I'm leaving on the stage light, the way the crystal tree works, you have two pre-stage bulbs. When both cars are sitting in that laser beam, they're lit. Car A moves forward and lights his two bulbs. I move forward and light my two bulbs. We're then staged. When I talk about leaving, I'm talking about as soon as, if it's a Pro Tree, if it's a 4/10 Pro Tree, as soon as I see amber from the three bulbs that are under the stage bulbs, as soon as I see the glimpse of that, I leave the starting line. It takes 4/10 of a second for that bulb to come down. I stare at the very center of the top amber bulb. Billy Stocklin tells me on the radio, if it's a big round and I'm getting ready to stage, he's in my ear. He's telling me, I want you to stare the absolute center out of the back of that top bulb. And that's what I look at. It's really hard to do, but ideally you do not want to look at the stage bulbs when you're staging the car. If you end up being last to stage and you're stared at the stage bulbs to make sure when you go in, you have to refocus your eyes down. When you do that, the tree is on. So what the hardest thing to do is to stare at that top amber bulb and not look at the four pre-stage bulbs. You will be able to see it out of your peripheral. You just have to practice it. Don't give up on it. Ryan Cairns, can you cover reading spark plugs in the future video? I think it would be great info for alky and gas plug reading. Absolutely. We will do a fast lane episode sponsored by NGK Spark Plugs coming up. Look for it in a couple of weeks. I've had a lot of questions about spark plugs and how to read them, and we're going to do a fast lane episode about that. Thank you for bringing that up also. Michael Spivey, so I have a good question. The turbo queers have a bump box when they're getting gapped. Does a blower have that option allowed to pet the rules? I don't know really what that means, or how does it work if you need a little more boost? The turbo guys use a bump box to stage because they have to bring the car up on boost to stage it because they only make about 11 horsepower. Things can barely do a burnout in water. So what they do is they spool the thing up for about 30 minutes to get the torque converter up to 3,000 degrees, and then they push a little button that like kind of bangs the car in about 40 miles an hour. Blower cut doesn't need that because A, it has man horsepower, and we don't need to do any of that silly stuff. We just stomp the gas and take off like a real race car. So we don't need to bump in. And when you talk about it needing more boost, the bump box has nothing to do with that. That's just how it brings it up on boost for the silly turbo cars so that they can stage it. I wish I had like a boost button down there, like an extra 10 pounds to get me there, but we don't have that. We kind of make what we make. Dustin Williams, why do you have tire cover on to cover the tires in the staging lanes? This is a good question. The diameter of our rear tires is big and it holds a lot of volume of air. Because of that, the air inside gets smaller and bigger rapidly with temperature. As the concrete cools down, the tire pressure gets less. As the asphalt or concrete heats up, it makes the tire expand, makes the air pressure molecules get bigger. The worst thing we can do is have sunlight on one rear tire and not have sunlight on the other rear tire. In the summertime, if you were to leave a car sitting in staging lanes, like a Pro Mod that requires wheel speed to leave, and you let one tire sit in the 90-degree sun for 5 minutes, it's going to gain 3 or 4 pounds of pressure, and it's going to gain rollout. It'll actually stretch the carcass of the tire. Now that will come back down after a couple of runs, but the first time you go up there with a tire that's bigger on the back than the other side, the car is going to go whichever way the smaller tire is. So the tire shades over the car are to keep the temperatures of the tire and the size of the tire consistent before we leave the starting line. If you look at the back of my car when I'm pulling up to the line, there's a guy on the tire pressure right up until I fire it. These things are very sensitive to tire pressure. If you miss it 1/10 of a pound or 2/10 of a pound, it's not going on a racetrack. So we kind of take every precaution we can to make sure that it's as consistent as possible. Chris Norris, behind the scenes with Stevie Fast between round maintenance is fascinating. How many sensors are on your car? Thank you very much. I'm blown away by how much everyone is interested in the technical aspect of the car. It's my favorite part of it. I didn't realize that we had so many fans that were so passionate about the technical stuff. So thank you for paying attention to that. We run about 60 channels of data acquisition through our race pack. I am a huge advocate for data acquisition. Data acquisition generally doesn't do anything for you when it all works right. It's the fastest way to find something when it goes wrong. I monitor everything from track temperature to tire temperature to shock travel, every pressure, temperature known to man, I monitor it. If RacePack makes it, it's probably on my car. It's probably overkill, but when you have an issue and the car doesn't run right, it's the absolute fastest way to find it. Craig Parker, I'm glad you kicked their butts. I love it when you rev it before you put it in the lights. Yes, thank you, me too. I wish I had that sound as my ringtone. All right, Craig, we've granted your wish. I put together a ringtone for iPhones and Android. Per your request, and there's a link down below where you can download it. You can hear me roll that thing through the water, give it the old crack-a-rooski, and run it down through there.